Meeting is now being live streamed.
Yeah, on the air.
All right. We ready to rock?
Yep.
Let's
All right.
boogie.
All right. Good morning. Welcome to the Notary War Room, where it is about to go down today. All right. I am Dawn Velez out of Florida. I am the owner and operator of Notary Nation. And I have the privilege and the honor to sit down with a person that is goated in this industry. His name is Mr. Ricky Salmon. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Yes, it's our pleasure to have you. So let's kick it off. Tell us who you are. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. As you mentioned, Ricky Salmon is my name. I'm an 18-year veteran in the mobile notary industry. I kind of know a thing or two. I got into this business when it wasn't even a business like that, and since then I've been able to grow and sustain the operation. I've been able to, put on quite a few people to the business, some who've taken it and ran with it, like Andre Hatchett and others who have not done anything with it. But, at the end of the day, I'm just a humble dude from Jamaica who's willing to put on for his people and his culture, pretty much in a nutshell.
I love it. The truth of the matter, okay, if it wasn't for you not being a gatekeeper with what you have done and putting on other people such as Mr. Andre Hatchett. Andre is who, in my, from my perspective, he wasn't out there like that. He was kind of just getting started. And that was some years back when I noticed that, he was talking about notary with like Dr. Boyce and people like that. And until he is today. But if not for you, I know I wouldn't have been birthed because I wouldn't have had the opportunity to see Andre out there doing his thing. So praises and props to you for that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But also hats off to Hatchet, man. Like I said, there's some people that don't do anything with the business. Back then I was giving out information for free, and it's one of those things where I felt like I was like preaching the gospel about this notary thing, and you have those people that actually listen, and those people are like, whatever, and find every objection to not do it. So, he came to me. First of all, I've known Hatchet for years. We went to high school together, and he and I weren't close in high school, but we knew mutual friends, and we would always see each other at gatherings. So over time we became close, and he took a liking to it. He asked me to show him the ropes, and at that point I was already a year into the business, and I showed it to him. I brought him around with me to different jobs, and I kind of put him on to the way things work. And like I said, hats off to him for taking it and running with it, and even taking it to a next level in terms of teaching it to others and, our people. It's just wonderful, because in 2004, when I got started, there weren't too many of, us in the business. And I mean, Black people, so it's nice to see that has changed over the years, and it's continuing to evolve in that direction.
Exactly. So can I ask you, Ricky, what got started as a notary? How did you choose this path?
That's a good question. I would like to think that it's the path that chose me. I had just gotten married to my first wife back in 2002-ish. And my dad, at the time, I was trying to do my entrepreneurial thing. I was selling stuff on eBay. I was into music. I wanted to do rap at one point and reggae. I was dabbling in different ventures, but my dad thought that it would be a good idea, now that I'm married, to actually get a steady job. And he was working with a title company. So he got me a position in the post-closing department. Now, that's after the loan closes and you ship the docs back to the title company. They literally like pick the docs apart, make sure all the signatures are there. And, you know, I used to be in charge of the payoffs and like itemizing the payoffs on a disbursement sheet. And then, you know, they would then pay off the payoffs after the right of rescission period ended. As you know, you have 3 days to rescind or to cancel the loan after it closes.
Sure.
And after that rescission period ends, then we have to cut checks to their credit cards if they want to pay them off. So I was in the post-closing department. So I used to get all the documents back from the notaries that were doing the closings. And, you know, they had like candy in them and they had thank you cards in them because they were grateful for the business that we were giving them. And yeah. So it got me to thinking like, all right, you know, I saw other guys in the office that were notaries and they were doing some closings for the title company locally. And so I said to myself, like, you know, I could become a notary and do this. And so I talked to my dad about it. I said, what do you think about it? And, you know, he said, I think you should go for it. So shortly after that, I got my commission and I started doing closings for the title company in the New York area after work and on the weekends. And I noticed that I was making more money like on my off time than I was on the job. And I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, because they paid me separately for the closings that I was doing. And I'm like, all right, you know, if only I could find a way to generate this kind of money on a full-time basis. But I know if I quit the job, they're not going to give me any more closings. So it's like, it was a catch-22. Fast forward a couple months later, they started downsizing. They lost a couple clients. I think Chase was one of them and a couple other big banks. And they had to lay some people off. And, you know, I actually took a trip to Florida. I remember it was September of 2004. And I ended up getting stuck in a hurricane down there. And I had no more sick days, no more off time, nothing. And they canceled my flight, so I had to stay there longer than I was supposed to. And I called them. I remember their reaction on the phone when I told them I wasn't going to be able to come back. They weren't too happy. But I told them I would get the next flight I could and come back. So when I finally got back, you know, I got a call from HR asking me to come in. And literally they were like, you know, we no longer need your services or no longer need you. And I'm like, all right. As of when? And they were like, as of right now. So I'm like, okay, I will go upstairs, grab some stuff, and I'll have my dad get the rest of my stuff and, you know, bring it to me. And they said, fine. So I went upstairs, I grabbed a couple important things. And I remember on the way out, I said to the guy that was in charge of getting the notaries, his name is Pat Cavilli. I remember like it was yesterday. I said, Pat, what sites do you go on to find your notaries?
Yeah.
And he told me, he said, you know, and this is free game for y'all that are up and coming. He was like, you know, 123 Notary, Notary Rotary, and signingagent.com. So I wrote them down. And literally the same day I went home, I started advertising on those sites. Okay. And before long, I would say about a week or two, the phone started ringing for people that needed closers and notaries to do loan closings. So that was kind of the best move that I made on the way out. I just, you know, and he put me up on game and I'm like, all right. And I took it and ran with it.
Yeah. And you know what? Shout out to your dad for encouraging. Hey, you know what? I think you should go for it because look what it's turned out to be for your life and others.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I give him his props all the time. I'm like, yo, if it wasn't for you, first of all, he got me the damn job. Then, right. You know, he encouraged me to take it to another level. So, you know, shout out to my dad, man.
Right, for sure. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. That's really a good story of, kind of falling into it, if you will, and having that necessity kind of pop up with the whole, we don't really need you anymore thing. So
Correct.
you stopped working for just getting listed. Were you ever involved with like doing the whole signing service thing, or did you always kind of have like directs, or how did it go for you?
Well, it's funny because back then I started from like the mud, so to speak, like the ground up. I firmly believe that in order to be a good chief, you got to be a good Indian, right? Or Native American, in more political correct terms. But I started off doing loan closings. In fact, when I got it, that's why I got into the business, because that's all I knew.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, general notary work wasn't really a thing, so to speak. Well, not for me at least. All I knew was loan closings, loan closings, loan closings. And so I used to get work from signing agents or signing services, yes. And mind you, the signing service, the title company stopped giving me closings after they let me go. So that, it was like a done deal. But thank God I was starting to get signings now from outside companies, other signing services that needed notaries. And mind you, they were getting their cut. But I was just happy to be able to generate some business. And, I was happy to generate some income on my own, outside of a 9-to-5 job.
Exactly.
But I got into this business strictly doing loan closings.
Okay.
That's all I knew at the time.
Okay. So let me ask you this. Of course, you've been doing it for so many years. You've gone through presidencies through this.
Correct.
So my question is, throughout the years, there have been recessions, there's been, spikes, all kinds of just the world changing and evolving. How did you survive what we're just going to call the drought then when it came up through the years? What were some strategies and things you did to pivot times?
That's a good question. Let me first back up a little bit and say that when I got into the business and things were hot. I mean, remember, this is 2004, 2005. So even 2006, I mean, by then I knew how to do a closing in 15 minutes. I knew how to make the borrower feel comfortable to the point where they would sign off their firstborn. I could be in and out. And I knew how to get repeat business from these same companies. I was their go-to. And it came to a point where I couldn't handle all the closings myself. So the fact that Andre Hatchett got in, and some other folks that I knew got into the business, and I had to, find other people that I didn't even know personally to help me out by using the same directories that I listed myself on. It's one of those things where the demand was so popping back then, and I'm gonna use colloquial terms, everything is everything right now, but I'm gonna be myself on this one. So, it was just hitting, and I'm like, all right. So I recruited some lieutenants with ludicrous dreams of getting some cream, and I'm like, all right. So I was putting Hatchet on. Not only did I put him onto the business, but I was also giving him business, and I was cutting him checks. I had another guy who actually was Andre Hatchett's best friend. His name is Mike McGovern, who I still work with to this day. Hats off to him. But we kind of buddied up, giving him business, like just feeding the flock, so to speak. And in 2007, 2008, all of that dried up. And on top of that, I had signing companies that didn't pay me for the work that I had all these other people doing. So I owe them money and I'm not getting paid. So it was like double whammy, So I'm just like, all right, I'm screwed. So I had to fall back off of everything, and I had to find a way with the little business that I was getting to pay off the notaries. Because I felt like, you know, just because I got screwed, that doesn't mean I should screw them. So I found a way to pay them up. And, you know, I just basically like fell back off of everything. And it just so happened that I was going through a divorce at the time. And so let me tell you, for anybody who's getting a divorce, don't do it during a recession. You know? It's the worst possible time. So I had to move in with my aunt. And it was like, I remember it was like a room. It was the size of a closet. And I was seeing my daughters every other weekend and, you know, just trying to make ends meet. And I just had to come to terms with things that I'm like, yo, this is just not working. You know, I still had to pay rent to my aunt, even though it wasn't a lot. You know, I still had to make sure she got utilities. And so at that point, I decided I had to expand my offerings and I had to do something different. So I decided that I'm going to try to advertise and see if anybody just needs a notary, just to notarize a document, like a power of attorney, just a simple document. Like we come to you by appointment, 24/7. That was my angle. I'm like, listen, if I got to get out of my bed in the middle of the night, which I did many times, I'll go and I'll notarize it. And back then, I'm like, all right, just give me 25 bucks, 35 bucks. I'm like, all right, I'll take, all right, give me what you got. You know, I was so hungry for the money. I was like, oh, it's whatever. So, you know, I graduated from that and that still wasn't enough because now I got to pay child support, you know, even though we hadn't gone through the courts, I still felt the obligation to pay for my kids. I got two daughters, you know, so with my ex-wife. So I'm just like, all right. And I remember that first Christmas, I just literally had to go to the dollar store and buy like pencils and just like stuff that had Disney on it. So my daughters were like, you know, like fascinated, but I just felt so like down. And at that point, I started advertising general notary, you know, we come to you. And then when I was in a position to, I flew out to California and I ended up getting certified in fingerprinting because I couldn't find anybody locally to train me. So I flew out there, I got trained in fingerprinting. And then I started advertising apostille services. So I was a one-trick pony leading up to the recession, but after that, I vowed that I'm never going to be reliant on one source of income anymore. You know, like that was it. To have all my eggs in one basket is very dangerous. And so from there, I kind of, you know, and Obama came into office. I remember, you know, things started to get better. He started, you know, doing the loan modifications and we started getting calls again. So, but even before all of that, I actually had to get a job. I became a courier, you know, it was a short-lived period and I hated every minute of it. In fact, I was so bad at courier work that, you know, they started to complain about me. And, you know, I remember one day distinctly, I went to deliver some checks to some people and I was so late. Their shift was over and they were just waiting around for me. And they were so pissed. He just snatched this check from me. And I was like, all right, I'm sorry. It's you know, this is not what I'm used to, whatever. So bottom line is, yo, when it's all about survival, you do what you got to do to survive. You know, so, and then I hated that job. I can't stress that enough, but I hated it so bad. I didn't even go back to pick up my last paycheck. I was like, yo, y'all can keep it. I think they owe me like $75. I'm like, yo, keep it. So at the end of the day, my advice to anybody going through a struggling, you know, time period like now, it feels like 2008 all over again. And this one was actually induced by the feds raising interest rate to offset inflation. And I get it. But, you know, as a result, you know, people are not borrowing money as much. The banks aren't lending. And it's one of those things where, you know, people that were so used to doing closings are feeling the pinch right now. You follow me?
Right. Those who didn't kind of. So you went from basically flooding the block, right? You were
Yeah.
feeding body, you had them rocking, everything was going great. You ended up kind of losing everything that you had built to start over, and
Yep.
implementing some other things, picking up some other sources of income. So you learned those lessons that came along the way. So that's awesome. And it's also admirable that you didn't let that stop you. Because sometimes it can get a little tough and we throw in the towel.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. To that point, I know many signing agents that just went and got regular jobs and just stayed there. In fact, I know one guy in particular, he decided to become a mortgage broker. And I mean, I'm sure he's made good money, but yeah, I was determined to stick it out. I didn't want anything interfering with my potential to make money as a notary. So even if I had to get a night job or whatever, I still wanted to be available because I knew the potential that existed. I knew that I could make way more money off of the notary than I could at a 9 to 5, but I just had to get through that time period. If I could get through, I was like, yo, I'm either dumb or a genius. I kept saying that to myself, like, I'm either the dumbest dude alive for not giving this up, or I'm a genius. And it turns out I'm a little bit of both, depending on what day it is. But in this regard, it ended up paying off leaps and bounds.
Wow, amazing. So this is a question I have just, I think it's important for us to kind of hear from you. What do you wish that you had known about the business before you dove in?
Honestly, I wish I knew how much money is out there. And I don't, I pull no punches, I'm kind of like, Tiger in that regard. Like I keep it so real, but there's trillions of dollars in circulation. I mean, literally every day, trillions. And it's one of those things where, the notary business has afforded me the opportunity to channel some of that money in my direction and in the direction of others. But in terms of knowing what I know now, if I knew back then, I totally undercharged in the beginning. I mean, I still think I undercharged, but at least I hear more people saying "ouch" now than I did back then.
Right.
It was like, there's no shortage of money. There's none. I know we come from a mindset where there's scarcity, and I get that. And I had it too. Like if I eat, then he can't eat or she can't eat, but nah, there's enough money for everybody to eat and eat well. So, if I knew then how much more I could have charged for my services, how much more demand there was for my services, and now, back then it was a numbers game. I used to try to get as many closings as I could, get as many clients as I could. It was more of a quantity thing. For me nowadays, it's more of a quality thing. Like, I don't have 1 million clients, nor do I want 1 million clients.
Sure.
Give me 1,000 good clients, and I'm good with that, like, and what I mean is clients that know my fees. Money is like no object to them. Like they'll put their credit card on file. I'll charge them for what I owe them. What they owe me. They'll even send me a tip on top of it. Like, sometimes I think like, all right, this person is gonna cringe when they get this invoice, and they just, pay. In fact, I don't even invoice anymore. Like I said, I keep their card on file, and whenever the service is rendered or in the midst of the service, if it's an apostille or other things, I charge it and send them a receipt, 9 out of 10 don't have a problem with my fees. The ones that do, I might be like, all right, I'll give you a 10% discount. And they're happy with that. And, again, I don't really negotiate my fees. There's just a lot of things that I can sit here and tell you a few things but those are the main things, that there's lots of money out there, and don't hold back on your fees. If you're going to provide a good service, charge them out the ass.
No, you are speaking language right there, because I don't play about my pricing. I don't play about the fact that I'm here to make a profit,
Yeah.
And with everything, with eggs being the price that they are, that's a perfect example, of how to do that you're here to do, and understand the value that you are bringing to the client. I think that's what is, helps feed that imaginary fear of being afraid to charge, a decent, fair price.
Absolutely. You're bringing them value, and just think about it. What if you work and you're bringing them expertise too? Like, they're paying for you, not the stamp. They're paying directly for your services, and like you said, the value that you bring to them. It's not. We undervalue ourselves. Perfect example. I had a notary job in California. When was it? Yesterday? Yeah, yesterday. And so I got a notary out there. I asked him how much does he charge, and he says, and my assistant does most of the work, but I actually called him on this one. And I said, how much do you charge? He said, well, $10 travel fee and $10 for the notarization. Now I'm thinking to myself, like, this is Cali, bro. I know you can charge up to $15 for each notarization. And I mean, and he only wanted $10 travel fee. I'm like, all right, okay, let's roll. But I was prepared to pay significantly more. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know it sounds crazy, but I was happy for the deal, and I'm not going to say, no, I'm not going to pay you 20. I want to pay you 50, but I was happy to pay more money for his services. And then finally, when he sent me the invoice, Square has the ability for you to tip somebody. In some instances, you can leave a tip.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't enable that function because he did such a good job. I'm like, all right, he's going to invoice me for $20. And I'm going to pay him, but I'm going to give him a good tip. The dude didn't even enable the function for you to tip him.
Wow.
I mean, and so I did the next best thing. He did send me a link to leave him a review, and I did give him a 5-star review, and to hopefully give him more business. But at the end of the day, I feel like notaries in general severely undercharge for their services. Again, that's not to say if somebody charged me $250, which notaries have done, I'd be like, all right, that's a little too pricey. I'll try to get somewhere in the middle. Yeah. But the ones that charge $250 are few and far between compared to the ones that'll charge you $20 and $30. I think we undercharge.
Well, would you say that a lot of that has to do with them not knowing how to actually be an entrepreneur, like a business owner?
Well, now that you mention it, absolutely. I think about other businesses that undercharge for their services as well, too. It's not just limited to the notary business. It's one of those things where in any business, if you don't know your worth, if you don't know your value, and I know that there's some fear to it, too, because, if people are thinking to themselves, like, I wouldn't pay that kind of money for a notary, but you're not paying that kind of, somebody else is, like, it's one of those things where you don't realize how valuable you are to somebody until, somebody has to kind of show you, and even still, you don't get it. My wife, I'm always telling her, like, honey, you got to raise your prices. She's in the business as well, too. I'm like, she's like, yeah, but I'm scared I might lose business. I'm like, listen, if they could pay you $300 or $350, they could pay you $450. You know what I'm saying? For an apostille. And
Yep.
she's like, all right, you know, so she's a little apprehensive, so I get it. But listen, I've really turned it up, and I feel like I will continue to turn it up on my prices. And mind you, it's not for everybody, but then again, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. And there are ways, and I'll be the first one to tell somebody, like, listen, you can't afford it, go to your local bank. They'll do it for free. I'm like, you know, if you have an account there, they'll do it for free.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you are moaning about my prices, then you're not my customer. But my customers are out there.
Right.
And it's a numbers game. You know, I get calls all the time, or until I, you know, enacted an automated system to, like, you know, sort through the calls. I used to get calls, you know, you do notaries? Yeah. Where you located at? And I'm like, we're mobile. We come to you by appointment. How much you charge?
Yep.
And I'm like, our fees start at $150, so to speak. Oh no, it's supposed to be $2. And I'm like, listen, I understand. You can just go to the bank and get it done for free. It's easy, you know, and they're happy. I'm happy. I'm happy to get them off my phone and make room for the next call. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where you just got to weed through the people that are not interested, and just, you know, you'll find your people.
Exactly. I agree 100%. I do. Knowing your value and knowing how to operate a business, such as making sure that you leave people the opportunity to leave you a tip, because you never know what that person may gift your business with. So I think that's important, knowing the functions of Square and different systems that you use. You need to know how to use it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, yeah, something I've gotten like $200 tips. And this is on top of me charging, you know, a couple hundred for my services. Like, people are generous and people have money, you know. I have literally billionaire clients. Like, money is no object to people. And I know some people, and I know it's hard for people to grasp that concept. It was hard for me to grasp that, you know, like, you don't care? Like, this is like, okay.
Oh, wow. No, billionaire clients. Okay, noted. Now, in your opinion, all right, tell us what you.
Oh, I think we lost you. Are you there? Yeah, I think we lost.
Yeah, we might have a little technical difficulty, but I'm gonna.
Yeah, we were rocking too.
I know, man. We was flowing, baby. We was flowing. So we're live on Instagram, YouTube, and the Zoom. Shout out to everybody that's tuning in backstage. You're able to ask your questions to the top G Ricky right here. So we have a question from Prina. Prina, where you at? Connecticut? It looked like you have CT on there. But her question is, what is your advice for suggesting notaries stick to their fees, even with their individual expertise?
What is my advice for notaries to stick to their fees? What was the last part, Tiger? I just want to make sure I'm answering it correctly.
Yeah, so I'll read it, the whole thing out. So it says, what is your advice for suggesting notaries stick to their fees, even with their individual expertise, when we have notaries who clearly will charge much less based on your example you provided for $2?
Well, I think, you know, that's a good question. The way you stick to your fees is by exhibiting to the customer that you know your shit, so to speak. You know, when a customer calls me and just wants to know the fee, I automatically kind of know that's not my customer. You know, once my customer says, you know, all right, well, I have a grandmother in the nursing home who needs to sign a power of attorney, you know, and I'm like, all right, I show some empathy. I'm like, you know, or you know, I have someone on the deathbed. I'm sorry to hear that. Or if somebody just died, you know, I'm saying my condolences, you know, but either way, you have to kind of connect with that person on some level. Once you do that, you then go into more detail as to, you know, what's the purpose of the POA, you know, who's the signer, you know, you kind of want to know about them and the circumstances surrounding the POA. Some people will volunteer this information. Some you kind of have to pry it out of. But once you get that conversation going, you know, you kind of say, all right, you know, these are my fees. And I don't care about other notaries. The first thing you have to do is stop caring about other notaries and what they charge. You know, you have to basically say, listen, this is what I'm worth. This is what I know I'm worth. This is the value I know I'm bringing to the table, and exhibit that to the customer. You know, keep in touch with them. On the way to an appointment, after the appointment, follow up with them. They'll turn into repeat customers and they'll refer you to whoever, you know, they come in contact with. Oh, you need a notary? Boom. So at this point, you're not playing the pricing game. Yeah. And I always say this, you don't compete on pricing, you compete on the service you provide. So I know that I charge way more than the typical notary, but I also know that I have skin in the game. I got 18 years under my belt. You know, I can probably advise, even though I stay away from giving advice, but what I do say is, if I were you, I would do this. You know what I mean? I try to put myself out there like, listen, I'm not a lawyer. I can't give you advice, but if I was in your situation, I would do this. And this takes the burden off of me, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, you try to basically demonstrate your worth to the client. And trust me, they'll pick up on it. They'll know a $20 notary in some instances, because the guy I hired for 20 bucks was actually pretty good. So you can't always say you get what you pay for. But if you're able to demonstrate that you're worth the price that you're asking through your interaction with the customer, it doesn't matter what any other notary out there is charging.
Exactly. We never see Chick-fil-A being concerned about Wendy's across the street and what they're doing.
Exactly.
Your own company. Right.
Correct. Right. Yep. Exactly. You just play your game, play to your strengths, and you'll be fine. And I hope I've answered the question.
You did. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
No worries. My pleasure.
Now, in your opinion, what I was saying, what are some of the most important skills that a person should have in this business?
Communication is up there. Like, you know, I can't say I'm the best communicator on the planet, but I know how to get my point across in a concise, effective manner. Yeah, you got to be able to communicate with clients, and personability, I guess. You got to make them feel comfortable. You know, people like spending money with those people they like. I tend to crack a joke every now and then. That's relative to the situation, you know, and a lot of people can appreciate a sense of humor. But then again, if somebody's calling me about a morbid or a situation or a death in the family, you got to show some empathy. There's no time for jokes, you know. So you got to know how to read the room, so to speak. You also have to know, like I said, communicate well. You also have to know how to communicate your value to people. That's very important. Also, being able to capitalize on certain situations. Like if somebody's calling you like for a last minute notarization, you got to say to yourself, all right, they're desperate. So chances are they'll be more than willing to pay more than if somebody was calling me 2-3 days ahead of time to schedule it in advance, you know. So desperation leads to dollars. And I just made that up. You know, not in every instance, and I don't want to generalize, but typically if somebody needs somebody right away, a notary right away, and you can fulfill that need, they'll pay you. They'll pay you
Yeah.
significantly, you know?
Yeah.
So those are a few of the core things that I would stress. But I kind of learned how to make people feel comfortable in a hurry from doing closings. Because when you don't, the flip side to it is if they don't feel comfortable, they're going to ask you a million questions. Well, what's this? Well, what's that? You know what I mean? Well, you know, they'll be hesitant to sign. So my whole thing is when I go into an appointment, I'm over there like, yo, that's a nice painting you got on the wall. Like, yeah. And I'm not making this shit up. I'm really looking at stuff to, you know, admire. Like, I got an eye for beauty. I'm like, yo, I've been to some places, you know, that will shell shock people. And I just walk in and look at like, wow, this is nice, you know, going to an office building, they got a view of Manhattan, Central Park. I'm like, you must never get tired of this view. And they're like, no, you know, and it helps them feel comfortable that I'm appreciating something that they have. And before long, they're signing their life away. You know, I'm like, all right. So the key to a lot of this is just making people feel comfortable, both on the phone, you know, good morning, this is Ricky, how may I help you? You know, being polite, having manners. I mean, I know this is shit that we take for granted, but it makes a difference. It makes a real difference. If they like you, they're gonna want to spend money with you, and they're gonna want to tell everybody about you. Oh, you were so pleasant. And one thing you have to do is listen. Just shut up and listen. You know, sometimes you just gotta let them talk. A lot of people think that I'm a great person because I let them talk, you know? And honestly, these are just some core things without going into too much more detail.
Yeah, I understand. And I can definitely appreciate that. Listening skills are a must. You know, a little bit of sales background, a little bit of sales skills helps. And just being a people person. Like you said, read the room. You're not going to go in there all holly jolly when someone is in their assisted living bed, you know, needing their POA or their healthcare surrogate done, or, you know, things like so yeah, okay, totally. Another thing too, would you say that would you recommend that we keep up with like any specific resources to kind of keep us educated on what are the trends, what's happening in the market? Do you use anything specifically for that, or?
Well, you know, it's funny because when I first got into business, I became a member of the National Notary Association, NNA. And, you know, I was reading all the newsletters. I was getting them all, and I was, you know, staying abreast of whatever. And then it seemed like after the recession or whatever, I just kind of fell off. And so, you know, it's not until recently that I kind of got back in. And shout out to Michelle, Noteworthy Notary Services. That's my cousin in Florida. Also, she's in the Fort Lauderdale area. So I got to put you guys in contact.
Awesome.
Yeah, she, you know, she was visiting me up north, and she's like, you got to get back into these, you know, NNA. She's like, I went to the conference, and I'm like, you did? She's like, yeah. She's like, so she's like, you got to become a member again. So she literally, I'm like, okay. So she was like, no, you got to do it now. And I'm like, all right. So she took my phone, she called up the NNA. I gave her my credit card number. She took my credit, and she's more like an action-oriented person when it comes to stuff like that. And she just, you know, signed me up. She was like, how many years you were? And I was like, what's the max? She was like, 5. I was like, do all 5 years. And then, so now I'm starting to get back into the trends. But my focus, honestly, I mean, my whole thing is I've been trying to be recession-proof, so to speak, ever since the last debacle in 2008, 2009. I'm at the point now where like, it doesn't matter what's going on with the trends, you know, like, yeah, I want to know about it, but I want to create my own ecosystem to the point where, shit, if the market is up, I'm still making money. If the market is down, I'm still making money, you know? And by doing that, I focused on upping my referral business and you know, trying to get because rich people know rich people, right? So, you know, if they are referring me to each other, then I'm good, you know, and repeat business as well too. I have some clients that I started with back in, I know it sounds crazy, you know, well, not as much as '04, because back then I was more focused on closings, and now it's more general notary work, apostille, we do translations, fingerprinting, like we've expanded our offerings, but I don't feel a need to keep up with the market trends as much as I used to, because either way, I'm determined to still make money. You follow me?
You're at a point you just don't have now.
Correct. And that's a good thing. It's a blessing. Again, I can make money from anywhere. I travel extensively. As you mentioned in the what was that?
You're in Punta Cana as we speak.
Yeah, I'm currently in Punta Cana, you know, for the winter. I'm running my notary business here. I've been here since December 5th. I'm staying probably until March or April. But yeah, and honestly, I'm still able to generate the same or even more income than when I was home. Like, you know, it's a blessing. It's a blessing. But like I said, I started from the bottom and now we're here, so to speak. But this is not it for me, though. You know, it's much more to come. But sometimes I just have to look back and pinch myself and just realize that, you know, how far I've come, how far the journey has taken me.
Amazing for even taking the journey. So the last thing I ask before we take some questions from everyone who was gracious enough to give us some of their time and attend with us. Just in general, if you could give us a few words of advice for people who may have a habit of shrinking themselves so that they can fit in places that they've actually outgrown, what advice would you have for those kinds of people?
You know, I'm guilty of that, or I was more guilty of that earlier on. Not everybody's going to see your vision. Not everybody's going to, you know, grow it at the same pace as you. But I tell my wife all the time, like, she's like, why you post? Like, I tend to post things on the gram and Facebook, not of me promoting my notary business or promoting my website or my, you know, platform, but of me having a good time. Like, I think it's important to just enjoy the journey. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, you get comments from other people like, "Oh, you rich, oh, you rich." And I'm like, no, I just work hard, and you know, I'm very persistent. But listen, I don't believe in minimizing yourself to cater to others who aren't as well off as you. You know, imposter syndrome is real as well too. You know, like a lot of us are guilty of not feeling like we belong, you know, where we are, or, you know, maybe we got here by luck. Nah, you're where you are because you deserve to be where you are. And that's something that we have to constantly remind ourselves of. And don't be afraid to if you got it, flaunt it. I know some people are against it, but I say screw that, yo. If you got it, display it for the world to see. You never know who you might inspire. Like, my goal is not to show off and be like, oh, look what I got. You can't do this. You can do this. You can be, don't be like me, be better than me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want it to take you, I don't want it for you to take 18 years to get to the point where I'm at. Like, if you could, I was listening to Tiger's tech interview, Tiger, last night, you know, in preparation for this war room. And, you know, I was saying, I smiled when Tiger was like, he was in the business for 5 years. And I'm like, damn, he's managed to be able to get what, you know, accomplish so much in 5 years. That's like a fraction of the time, you know what I'm saying? Like, it took me, but I'm not bitter about it. The fact of the matter is, I love that. And, you know, and I hope it takes the next person 2 years to get to, like, I love the fact that the progression is real. The learning curve has been shrunken, especially with, courses like, Notarize and Capitalize, Tiger's book, I like the fact that we're all like contributing to the shrinkage of the learning curve, which I think is important. Like you don't have to go through what I did. You know what I mean? Like Jay-Z said, Hov did that, so you wouldn't have to go through that. You know what I'm saying? Like it's one of them things where, each one teach one. We all put on for each other, and we can all eat. We don't all focus on the same things, but we can all eat. There's enough money to go around.
Yes, I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. I'm going to just kind of go through the comments. If you guys would raise your hand, and just that way I can see if you have a question, and we can get your questions answered. I'll see your hand raised. Okay, we have Ben. Let's see. Okay, Ben, go ahead.
Oh, sure. So I just wanted to ask, Ricky, you had mentioned your automation as far as your phone system taking calls, and I was just curious which system that is that you use or might recommend.
Okay, that's an excellent question. The phone system that I utilize is called Grasshopper, and I don't know. I found out about them by listening to a commercial on Hot 97 one day. They're called the Entrepreneur's Phone System. Now, I know that there's a lot of competition out there for different phone system and, voice over internet, VoIP protocol, whatever. I gravitated towards Grasshopper because that works best for me.
Okay. All right.
Appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you, Ben. Tech, you had a question?
Yeah, hey, it's an honor and it's a privilege to meet you, Ricky. Absolutely, man.
So, no doubt, man. What's up?
I see clearly that you're swagged out. You obviously birthed a lot of what we see currently today. And if people don't know about you, then they know now. But yes. I wanted to ask you, with the way that you carry yourself and the way that you go about doing the business, and this might seem a little cheesy, but I want to ask you, do you wear like polos? Do you wear like, are you swagged out in your company gear? You got the company hat on? Do you do all that with the name badge? And is that a crucial part of your growth and success? I just want to know.
No, that's a good question. And you know what? I've done it all, Tech. It's one of those things where in the beginning, because I was doing closing strictly, I used to have to be professional because I wasn't representing just me. I was representing the title company, the bank, so I had my slacks, I had my, polo shirt. I wouldn't do the suit and tie thing, but I would do, the polos and the slacks and the nice shoes. As time progressed and I started getting away from doing as many closings and into other things, I started doing more jeans, with like loafers, or Sperry topsiders, like, the boat shoes or whatever. Like I started, doing that. I can't say that I would feel comfortable going to an appointment in just a t-shirt because there is some professionalism involved and people do judge you by the way you look. I mean, let's face it, it's the truth. Whether we want to admit it or not, or acknowledge it or not, that's a whole different thing. But first impressions are lasting impressions. So, yeah, bro, at this point, though, if I was to go to an appointment, which I can't because I'm in Punta Cana, but I would probably put on jeans, loafers, and probably a polo shirt if I'm going to an office. But if it's a repeat client, which a lot of my clients are, I probably would venture to wear like a t-shirt, especially if it was cool and depending on where I'm coming from or where I'm going next. Like, but I think some aura of professionalism is important, especially in the beginning, because that's another way you can command more money. Like, yo, pay me. You know what I'm saying?
That was my second question too. Did you see that reflected in the prices that you're commanding as well?
You damn right. You damn right. You know, like if you're charging $200 looking like a $2 notary, then people are not really gonna want to pay you. But you know, it's one of those things where once you present yourself by connecting to the customer, showing up, looking decent, and you know your shit, yeah, yo, you're gonna get your money. You're gonna get your money, you know.
Great question, Tech. And shout out to Tech.
All day, all day.
So I'm gonna take a question from YouTube. We have Mark. Mark says, Ricky, what advice would you give to someone who just got their notary commission and has no idea where to start with mobile notary? What is your first step that that person should take?
That's an excellent question. My first step would be the same step I took, you know. I'm a firm believer in practicing what I preach, you know, and I'm not going to give advice to somebody that I haven't done myself. I think you should start by putting yourself out there. Like, again, if you know how to notarize a document, you can make money with your step. How do you put yourself out there? Notary directories, right? If this is a part-time thing, I don't know if it's part-time or full-time, but either way, notary directories still work. Notary Rotary, 123 Notary, like put yourself out there. Google my business. You know, I know, Tiger, that they kind of shut you down, man, you know, and honestly, the same thing happened to my wife as well, too, because she had a bunch of listings out there, and they kind of just shut them all down. So they are cutting down. The algorithm is serious. You know, you try to circumvent it if you want, but you know, at the end of the day, it is what it is. But yeah, but they'll allow you to have a listing. So put yourself out there, create a listing, create a free website on their platform, Google My Business, Google Maps, whatever you want to call it. Do the same thing for Bing. It's free. And these are free resources that we go into in my course, you know, but at the end of the day, put yourself out there. You're always going to feel like you're not ready enough. You're not. I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to do a closing when I started doing closing. I just knew that they needed to sign and I needed to notarize. That's it. And I also knew that if I had a resource I can call on, which for me at the time was a title company or a loan officer, you know, if they had any questions, I knew I needed to call somebody. So, you know, if you have somebody that you can call on to get advice from a closing, a mentor, you know, call me. I'll mentor you. Like at the end of the day, this is stuff that you just have to do. It's like no bones about it. Either you advertise or you're not in business. Either you advertise or you die. You're either growing or you're shrinking or you're going extinct. That would be my advice to you. Start by putting yourself out there and just learn on the fly. But you have courses, you have Tiger, you have me, you have all these courses out there that'll teach you. But just start by generating some sort of traction. Get your first signing under your belt. Once you do your first signing, you're gonna feel like, all right, I could do this. And you're gonna build momentum from there.
Awesome. Excellent question. We have any other questions from YouTube, Tiger?
Yeah, we got a question from MIT 2008. She said, what is your cousin's name?
Michelle Brown is my cousin's name, and she owns Noteworthy Notary Services in Florida, in the South Florida, Broward County, Miami-Dade County area. Where are you, Dawn? Are you based out of South Florida as well too? Same area? Oh.
Florida. I'm in Central Florida.
Oh, you're in Central. All right. Yeah. So That's my cousin, Michelle Brown. Shout out to her. She's always pushing me, man. Always pushing me.
Love it.
And then we'll take this last question. And then Ricky, if you could talk about Notarize and Capitalize,
Sure.
this adventure that you have. So the last question is from Ayo. What's the best method of advertising for a newbie?
Best method of advertising. Well, now it's different from when I started. Again, well, kind of, sort of. But when I started, let me just put things in perspective. When I started, there was no YouTube. There was no Zoom. There was no Google. I mean, I think Google was started, but yeah, it wasn't what it is today. Back then, Yahoo was still a thing. Netscape was still a thing. So the way I got into the business initially was by putting myself in these directories. That's when I was targeting more closings. As time went on, I started advertising in the yellow pages, freaking yellow pages, yo. That's the thing that we used to sit on, like when we put our kids to sit on. And then online, Bing, Google, I highly recommend them. Get in the local searches, when you're able to get a website, do some SEO, Google ads. These are all ideas that you can implement to put yourself out there.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about Notarize and Capitalize.com.
All right. Notarize and Capitalize was created within the last year. Shout out to Mark Durdak, Avis Tech. He's actually working with me on this. But everybody's encouraging me to put my knowledge and expertise, into like a platform where I can teach others. Obviously, I've been doing this for a while now, and there's certain things that I've been through that others haven't been, namely a recession, a pandemic, a divorce, and a bunch of other things. So I've put together a concise platform that allows newbies and advanced notaries alike to pretty much excel in the notary business. We have a free ebook in there where you can tap into. Just go to notarizeandcapitalize.com. It gives you the basic. We also have a paid ebook, the mobile notary money guide. And then we also have a video masterclass, with 8 different modules, everything from getting started in the notary business to knowing your target market, marketing, networking, just all the way up to the 8th module is scaling and growing your business, which is where I'm at now, to the point where you're not doing the work anymore. You pretty much have other notaries running around doing it for you. So that's the masterclass. And as time goes on, I'm going to be adding more resources to it, but I just wanted to put my knowledge and expertise out there as well too. For more advanced notaries, you could schedule a coaching call in which we'll walk you through how to, survive the recession and different subject matters, how to grow your notary business, how to outsource, like the question Ben asked earlier, what phone service is good, how to hire a virtual assistant, how to train them, whatever you want to discuss, it's more of a coaching consulting thing, but if you're at a closing or appointment and you want to have a resource that you can tap into, we can also arrange for that as well too. It's one of those things where I just wanted to put something out there that was kind of my brainchild and help others excel or get started and excel in the notary business. So yeah, man, that's kind of it. I encourage everyone to tap into it. This stuff that I'm telling you now, yeah, it's just the tip of the iceberg. Like literally, it gets so much deeper, and there's just so much to learn about this notary business. When I got in, I thought the only thing was closings. I'm like, closings. I'm like, the banks will never go belly up. And I was wrong. They did in fact go belly up, and they stopped lending, and title companies closed, notary signing agencies left the business. It was just one of those things where I felt a need to just put this out there so that others can benefit from my expertise and shorten the learning curve as far as the notary business is concerned.
Love it. So how can people get in touch with you, Ricky?
Yeah, I'm actually on Facebook, good old Facebook, Ricky Aries Salmon. I'm also on Instagram, at Notarize Capitalized. At Notarize Capitalized. I'm not really a big Twitter person, but mainly those two mediums. Again, you can also email me. Good to go mobile at gmail.com. That's with the number 2. I'm pretty easy to get in contact with, so that's the best way to reach me.
I love it, bro. Man, I want to thank you so much for being on the show. Don, before we go, let people know how they can get in touch with you, because you did a phenomenal job as a host today. Bravo. Great questions.
Amen to that.
Yeah, you were wonderful. How
Thank
can
you.
they get in touch with you?
Thank you so much. And thank you for the opportunity, Tiger. And needless to say, it was just an amazing opportunity to you, Mr. Salmon, and to hear your story and your encouragement and your journey. So you can reach me. I am at One Notary Nation on Instagram. And if you go to the link in my bio, you'll see different things that I have going on in the notary community. I have an event coming up March 11th. Tiger T will be one of the speakers there. We've got Larry, the Google My Business expert, She-Boss, Kim Yanni. It's really going to be an amazing event. You are available and you're interested, March 11th, 10:30, we kick it off. Shoot me a DM and join in that learning session.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. So all the information is in the chat. Go to notarizeandcapitalize.com. I even put Big Boss Energy link in there. Tap into these people, you guys. Thank you so much for your participation. Being on the Notary War Room Live, we had Ricky Salmon kick off season 5, and I'm so excited and I'm very honored and humbled for it. And I'm so happy that we got Dawn Velez from Florida to take time out of her busy schedule to host this show. So just know that you are appreciated, ladies and gentlemen, and we wish you the very best. Peace.
Yeah. Shout out to you, Tiger. Good stuff, man.
Appreciate it, brother.
Good stuff, bro.